G'day and welcome to this week's FriBaT, Friday Beers and Tools. Sorry for missing out on last week. I was a little bit crook and just wasn't feeling up to recording a FriBaT. So here we are with a new Friday and a new beer. This week's beer is another from the Little Creatures brewery, which started in Fremantle in Western Australia and has another Little Creatures brewery in Geelong in Victoria. Happy Friday. I do like Little Creatures beer. This is a pale ale, but it's quite a hoppy pale ale. Not overly overpowering, but yeah, quite hoppy. Still a really refreshing beer. It's easy drinking. Yeah, it's probably a little more hoppy than what I like in a beer. For me, pale ales usually aren't quite so hoppy. For me, there's a number of other nicer pale ales out there. Not to say that I don't mind it, but there are more preferential pale ales for me. What do I give the Little Creatures? I better tell you about its alcohol percentage first. It's 5.2% beer, so it'll get you drunk pretty quick. Which is standard stubby size in Australia. That's 1.4 standard drinks. Yeah, nice beer. Not exactly what I would have all the time, but it's nice for a change. What do I give the Little Creatures Pale Ale on my Spanner scale? It's not the best pale ale I've ever had. I don't like hoppy beers a real lot. But it's certainly not bad. I give that a 2.5 Spanners out of 5. Rightio, on to our first tool of the week. This week we have a handy little tool, especially for the one-man shed. The task that we all tend to gets on our nerves a bit. Bleeding brakes and clutches, hydraulic. This little kit I bought off eBay a while ago. It doesn't have it has a generic name of carb brake fluid changer. As I said, it's designed around a one-man operation. It consists of the two main things that you see in front of you here. And let's explain their purpose individually. Alright, let's start with this piece. One of the problems with bleeding brakes on a car, especially by yourself, is that the reservoirs on brake master cylinders are usually quite small. They don't hold a lot of fluid. This system is designed as a feeder with a tap and comes with a number of adapters which screw onto the end. You choose the adapter size that fits into the top of your master cylinder reservoir, and it locks in place. Then you screw it down so that the end of the this part here is at the top of the fluid. Fill this with brake fluid. It holds approximately 0.75 of a litre, so 750 mils. I'll put that in pints or whatever it is you Americans use up in the corner, and then it only fills to that point. It keeps the reservoir at the top so that you don't ever get any air induced. Comes with a number of different sized adapters, 4 adapters in all for the filler bottle. So that's part one. So that takes care of making sure that the master cylinder reservoir doesn't drop below and you introduce air again. Part 2 of the kit is this little unit, and this is a air compressor operated unit, so it comes with a couple of fittings on the back, depending on the type of fitting that you use with your air compressor. They screw into the back here, and actually I think that one's mine. Screw into the back here, plug your air compressor supply onto here, pull the trigger, air flows across here and creates a vacuum inside the tube. You connect your tube with the rubber 90-degree adapters, one already attached here. That's the other one, different sized bleed nipples. Attach that to the bleed nipple of the brake caliper. Always start from the furthest from your master cylinder, and then all you have to do, nobody has to push the brake pedal. All you have to do, hook that up and give it a little bit of air pressure, and it draws a vacuum and will, whilst the bleed nipple's open, draws the fluid down from the reservoir and your filler bottle through the system and draws any air in the system out. They're a very handy tool if you're like me and often working by yourself in your garage or your shed. This one I got from Amazon, and it was only $24 Australian delivered. So it's not an expensive tool by any means. It's Chinese, of course. It's well made. It doesn't seem to have any real user serviceable parts, but it's a handy little tool, and at $24 you can't really go wrong with it. It does have a hook so that you can hang your bottle whilst you're doing your bleeding. I forgot to say this vacuum bottle, it will hold about 1 litre of fluid, so obviously you need to be aware that you can draw more fluid into this than what you've got even on your reservoir. It operates from between 6 and 12 bar, which is about 87 to 174 psi. I wouldn't recommend running 174 psi through here, although it is only blowing across here and creating a vacuum. You wouldn't need that much. So that's a very handy little kit to add to your tool collection if you're often one-man band like I am and no one around to give you a hand with bleeding brakes or clutches. Yeah, terrific little tool. Alright, what do we give this on the beer scale? Functionality, if you're always by yourself in your shed, having something that assists you to do brake bleeding by yourself, that's a godsend. Otherwise you've got to wait for the missus to become available, or you've got to go out and get a friend and get someone to help you pump the brake pedal. So for functionality perspective, I give it a solid 5 out of 5 beers. For value for money, for $24 Australian, really, it's $24. It's nothing. So I give it a 5 out of 5 beers for value. Very handy little tool to add to your toolkit. A couple of weeks ago I reviewed my Makita cordless hammer drill, which you might recall was a brushed version of the LXT range, the 18 volt range. That was the DHP 458Z. Very, very good drill and has served me well over the years. And in that review, I also mentioned that there is a brushless version, as Makita and almost all other cordless tool manufacturers now run brushless motors, and it makes them considerably more efficient. In my review, I said one of the problems with the brushless version, as opposed to the brushed, was it was not quite double the price. It was about 1.5 times the price. The original brushed version was about $200, $190, something like that. And when I first did my first investigations, the brushless model was about $320, $330. A little bit more digging, and you probably will remember I put it in the video, I could actually find them for $199, which made it an easy comparison or an easy decision to make between the brush or brushless. Always go brushless if the cost is almost the same. They're just a much more efficient motor. As you can see, I have a brushless version. This is the Makita XPH07Z for our American and Canadian viewers, and in Australia and England, this is the DHP481Z. It's essentially the same drill, it's the same dimensions, same capacity chuck, same mechanical gearbox, or a metal gearbox I should say, but with a brushless motor, so it's a more efficient motor. This one produces 125 Newton meters of torque, and I'll put the versus up here somewhere because I can't remember off the top of my head what the brushed version was. As I mentioned, it's got a mechanical 2-speed gearbox, which is selected up the top here, and that will give it a 0 to 550 RPM in low speed and 0 to 2100 RPM in high speed. It does also have the variable speed with the trigger mech. Forward and reverse, of course, and as we've seen in the past, well, it's got the light as well. It's got the lock button, which is also forward and reverse. So center is lock, can't pull the trigger. Right is right hand, and left is anti-clockwise. Right, all metal gears. Impacts per minute when it's on the hammer drill setting. 3 settings across the top here: hammer, screw, and hammer, drill, and screw. In the hammer setting, it delivers in impacts per minute. In the low setting, 0 to 8,250 impacts per minute, and in the high setting, 0 to 31,500 impacts per minute. The drill also comes with a very chunky and long handle, which I didn't mention came with the other drill as well. It just slips onto the front here if you're right or left-handed. I'm right-handed, so this goes on the left-hand side. It is very long, like it sits out a long way, and I don't know whether that's adjustable. No, the adjustment is not there. So very, very long away from the drill, but I don't think I've ever used the handle on the other drill. It does come with a depth gauge as well, which screws into the side here. Unloosen that, if I undo that enough, and the depth gauge goes into the side there to give you your depth of drilling. What else can I tell you about it? It's slightly heavier at 2.7 kilos, or around about 6 pounds. Whereas I think the DHP458Z, the brushed version, was around about 5 pounds exactly. So it's slightly heavier. This is with a 4 ampere hour battery. Those weights are quoted as a bare tool. It's got some heft to it. You can tell that they're a quality product. I think this is I think there is actually still a couple of drills above this, but really they're only slightly bigger motors with a bigger chuck. So for most work, this is big enough. Like all Makita tools nowadays, it has the battery gauge in here, and as I mentioned, the light. So it's way more powerful than the brushed version. It gives you much better battery life, and I actually picked this one up for $165 delivered Australian. Bargain as far as I'm concerned. So I don't even know whether they still make the brushed version. I haven't looked for that. It has served me really well, don't get me wrong. I've got no complaints about it, but this is the next step up, better again. Right, for functionality, obviously it's brand new, it only just arrived today, but if it's anywhere near as good as the brushed version, it's a 5 out of 5 beers for functionality, and at $165 and not $329 or whatever the original price was, it's 5 out of 5 beers for value as well. It is an excellent tool. Anyway, that's it for this week's FriBaT. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like, share and subscribe as per normal. Make sure you've got the little notification bell ticked so that you find out when I post new videos. I've got an interesting one coming up, a bit of a tool review. I was going to do it as a FriBaT, but I think I'll do it as a unboxing and tool review by itself. A new toy to add to my tool collection. It's sort of a tool, but it's sort of other things as well. You'll see that soon enough. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. I hope things are good where you are. Things are definitely improving in Australia, and looking forward to getting out and about a bit more now. The weather is absolutely spectacular here in the dry season in the Northern Territory now, with mornings of 17, 18 degrees and daytime temperatures 33, 34 degrees Celsius. Anyway, see you next week. Thanks for watching.